Another thing that we need to look at when we're considering these ideas of using the internet for surveys is there are some advantages and disadvantages that need to be considered. Some of the advantages is it's easy to collect large amounts of data. They also don't cost a whole lot of money compared to a in-person or telephone survey. Also, you can deliver multimedia content that you would not be able to do over the telephone. The problem is it's quite difficult to do well because internet surveys are not always going to have your true simple random sample. You'll often have people with more highly extreme opinions who are going to choose to respond, which is what we see with those voluntary responses. You also could encounter undercoverage. Some people would not be getting particular emails to participate into these surveys. And then you're going to have a lot of non-response where people ignore the email, choose not to participate in the study, things like that. We can look at the effect of these types of surveys by considering a web survey of doctors in internal medicine. One positive thing here is almost all of the doctors have listed email addresses, so we have a way to get in touch with them. The survey was sent by email to each doctor explaining the purpose of the study, promising anonymity, and giving the individual a web link for a response. The result here was that 45% of the respondents said that they sometimes use placebos in clinical practice. So this particular survey was done well because they did include all doctors' email addresses. They offered anonymity, and that was going to lessen the effect of people providing incorrect responses because they knew that nobody would ever find out that it was them. Not all web surveys are done like this. We don't always have email addresses for everybody, and we don't always ensure things like anonymity, resulting in people not always participating honestly. Finally, I want us to look at a few questions that you should always consider when you see the results from a poll. You want to know who carried out the survey. Political parties will often want information, but you want to make sure that they've hired a professional sample survey firm who does follow good survey practices. Otherwise, the person who's conducting the poll might have a reason to want a particular response and might ask the questions in a way to receive those responses. You also want to know what was the population. Who were they trying to include in the results? And that will tell you whose opinions are going to be in those particular results. You want to know how the sample was selected. You want to make sure that some version of random sampling was completed. You also want to make sure that you know how large the sample was. If the sample size was very small, that's going to lead to inappropriate results. If you can find out the sample size and the margin of error, that would be even better. You want to know the response rate. It's always helpful to know how many people responded out of how many were contacted so that you can get an idea of whether or not non-response is going to play a part in your survey responses. Also, how are the subjects contacted? It makes a difference if they were called, mailed, or interviewed face-to-face. When the survey was conducted is also important. Results from 1985 may or may not still reflect the population today. And then, what were the exact questions asked? A lot of surveys that are done by more prominent and reputable sources will actually publish the questions that they asked so that you can look at them and see if you believe that these questions might introduce bias or if they're worded in a way that's fair.